Here's how to think about vestigial structure arguments. Welcome to Critical Thinking Scan, where we look at how you can think about any faith-challenging message and arrive at a biblical, logical conclusion yourself. I'm Patricia Engler, and today let's look at how to think about arguments that so-called vestigial structures are evidence for evolution. These are structures in living things which supposedly had a function in their evolutionary ancestor, but now have either no function or at least different or reduced functions. For instance, my evolutionary textbook claimed, The adaptations of organisms have long been, and still are, cited by creationists as evidence of the Creator's wise beneficence, but no such claim can be made for the features displayed by almost every species that served a function in the species' ancestors, but do so no longer. Cave-dwelling fishes and other animals display eyes in every stage of degeneration. Flightless beetles retain rudimentary wings. In The Descent of Man, Darwin listed a dozen vestigial features in the human body, some of which occur only as uncommon varieties. They include the appendix, the tailbone, rudimentary muscles that enable some people to move their ears or scalp, and the posterior molars or wisdom teeth. My textbook also listed the reduced hind limbs in some fossil snakes and bones called vestigial hips in some whales as evidence for evolution. You can learn more about all of these claims through the resources linked to this video. For now though, let's look at how to think about these types of claims in general using some of the 7 checks of critical thinking. Check number 1 is check scripture. And Genesis teaches that God created living things to reproduce according to their kinds. So, biblically, we would interpret so-called vestigial structures as leftovers from one kind of creature evolving into another. Genesis also teaches that God's creation was very good, so we wouldn't predict that there'd have originally been completely useless design features in living things. However, Genesis also explains creation didn't stay very good because Adam sinned, meaning we shouldn't be surprised to see loss or degeneration of structures within kinds of living things. Biblically then, we would expect that vestigial structures likely either represent a loss or degeneration of some good design feature, or are not vestigial at all but have important functions. And sure enough, when we look at the observational science in these examples, which is part of check 6 of critical thinking, check the interpretations, we find that structures called vestigial do usually fall into one of these 2 categories. For example, cavefish losing functional eyes, beetles losing functional wings, or snakes potentially losing limbs would all be cases of lost genetic information within kinds of living things. But evolving one kind of creature from another would at some point require a gain of functional new genetic information. And incidentally, limbs on snakes don't appear in the oldest fossils anyway, like you'd expect from a straightforward evolutionary scenario. On the other hand, other structures Darwin called vestigial in humans do have important functions you can learn more about through the linked resources. For example, the tailbone is a crucial attachment point for muscles that support vital internal organs. The appendix plays a role in the immune system as a reservoir for helpful bacteria. Even pelvic bones in whales play an important reproductive role, as a study reported in the journal Evolution the year after my textbook edition was published. And what about wisdom teeth? Interestingly, wisdom teeth don't often cause problems in humans living on non-modern diets, but modern processed food seems to have contributed to wisdom tooth issues since the 1800s, again illustrating degeneration of an originally good design. Altogether then, the observational science is consistent with the biblical worldview and needs no explanation from evolutionary assumptions. And speaking of assumptions, we can also apply critical thinking check number 7, check the logic, to see the circular reasoning involved in arguing that vestigial structures are evidence for evolution. For a structure to be considered vestigial, evolution would have had to happen. So the argument must assume that evolution is true in order to argue that evolution is true. In the end, vestigial structures are not the clear-cut evidence for evolution which textbooks can make them seem to appear. They're typically either useful designs or examples of genetic information losses within kinds of living things. For more on how to think critically about faith-challenging messages, you can access my other CT scan videos packed with tactics, tips, and tools that helped me as a Christian student at Secular University. Thank you for watching. Hey, it's Patricia. Just wanting to let you know that if you like these videos, are on board to share the message of biblical authority, and want to give, you're welcome to help Answers in Genesis produce more content like this and equip more people to defend their faith by making a one-time donation or becoming a monthly supporter by clicking the link below. Thanks so much.